So we've talked about my tire. The next thing we're going to talk about is my actual wheel or rim. I don't care what you call it. You can call it wheel, you can call it rim. We're all going to know what we're talking about. My rim, I want to make sure that it is not bent or damaged. I want to make sure it does not have any cracks or illegal welds. Remember the term illegal welds. We're making sure that our lug nuts are all properly secured. Nothing is loose. I do not see any rust trails that would indicate a loose lug nut, or I don't see any shiny threads that would indicate a cross thread. My hub oil seal. I'm checking my hub oil seal. This is basically just a big plastic cap that goes over my hub. I want to make sure that it is properly secured and not leaking, and that it is full to the proper level. Do I need to know what the proper level is? No, not really. But if you wipe some of the dirt and dust away from the cap is actually see-through, and you can see where the oil level is right at the bottom of that cap. Oh! Yep.
Okay.
All right, so we've talked about the tire, the wheel, the lug nuts, the hub oil seal. The only other thing we're going to mention right here is our mud flap. We make sure our mud flap is properly secured. We're done with this side of the bus already. Got it all? Where's the alternator? Where? Show me. Point to it. Point. There you go. You're already halfway there. What about the serpentine belt? Where's the serpentine belt? Yep. What do we need to know about the serpentine belt? 3/4. 3/4 of an inch of play. Yeah, absolutely. See, look at you go knowing stuff already. All right. So once we finish with this side of the engine compartment, we go to the other side. All right, so this side of the engine compartment we're going to look at much the same way. We're going to look at some other specific components though. We are going to start firewall forward, top down, inside out again. We're looking at our air lines, our wires, our hoses. Make sure everything's properly secured. Wires are not cut, torn, or frayed. Make sure our hoses are properly secured and not leaking. And our air lines are all properly secured, and I don't see any cuts or abrasions or any signs of leaking. All of my other wires are all properly secured. Working my way out, I don't see any signs of leakage. Everything is properly secured. One of the things, or two of the components on this side of the engine we need to know are our air compressor and our power steering pump. Our air compressor, it'll be hard to see, but it is this red component that's bolted there. And then on the very front side of the air compressor is my power steering pump. So my air compressor is that long round red thing. And then my power steering pump is the silver thing mounted to the front of it.
Got the silver piece right there.
And so that round piece that's here is the actual governor that tells the compressor when to pump, when to not pump. The power steering pump is the silver box with all the hoses coming out of it that's mounted to the front. So you've got two things in line: air compressor, power steering pump mounted right to the front of it. And that cylindrical piece here is the governor for the air compressor. So we need to make sure those are all properly mounted and secured. I want to make sure I don't see any signs of leaks from the power steering lines. I also need to know that both of those components are gear driven. They are driven by an accessory gear on the back side of the engine. Now what I'm going to do is talk about fluids. Some of the fluids we're going to check. My transmission fluid. This is my trans fluid dipstick. I would check that with my engine running. And I would check it by pulling out, wiping it off, sticking it back in. You do not, but you have to talk through it. So you're going to learn these words, right? I would check it by pulling it out, wiping it off, reinserting it, pulling it back out, and checking the fluid level. Somebody dropped their paper.
So talk about it, but don't actually do it.
Correct. You don't physically have to check your oil in your CDL test. You will, however, physically check your oil before you start your bus every day. Again, we're learning how to pass the test first, and then we'll learn real world. Make sense?
I mean, off topic, is she probably burning up her gas?
No, that thing just smokes like a baby.
Oh, okay.
It's an old beat up old turd.
Oh, okay.
It is a turd. All of our double deckers are all old mega buses, so they all had 1 million miles on them before we even got them. And chopped the top off and put plastic seats in them. So they're tired old dogs.
They can't drive with the red minimum.
Hey, they
Mega
look.
bus don't run no more, right?
What?
Mega bus
No.
don't. Oh, I'm gonna cut it out. Don't worry about it.
You're gonna have all this good stuff. Good, useful information.
Give me the commentaries.
Yeah, this will be the cuts. My oil, my engine oil, I check with the engine off. And I check it the same way. Pull the dipstick out, wipe it off, reinsert it, pull it back out, and read it. I want to make sure that it's between minimum and full, or add and full. For the test, you will not actually pull dipsticks and check for it, but you will talk to your way through it. Explain to the examiner that you know how to do it. So those are my two fluids. The next fluid we're going to check is my coolant reservoir. My coolant reservoir is properly mounted. It is full to the proper level between add and max. The cap is on and tight. All of my hoses are properly secured and nothing is leaking. So those are my fluids that we're going to talk about as we're working our way out. Now on this side of the bus we have steering components to talk about. The steering components I want you to compartmentalize in their own little group. The steering components we're going to talk about, we're going to start with what does our steering shaft do? It takes the controls from the steering wheel, goes all the way down to our steering gearbox. So we want to make sure our steering shaft is properly secured and the U-joints at both ends are properly greased. Now, did you guys hear me talk earlier when I said U-bolts on the suspension? And now I've just said U-joints here.
Yeah.
Do not confuse the two, because we're going to talk about U-bolts and U-joints in a couple of different places. Steering shaft, not broken, not dented, not bent, not damaged, properly secured. Oh, tire guy. U-joints on both ends properly greased. My shaft connects directly to my steering gearbox. You can call it steering gear, you can call it the gearbox, you can call it the power steering gearbox. My gearbox is properly mounted to the frame. It is not leaking. Now, while I'm on the gearbox, I like to talk about the hoses going into the gearbox. Where do the hoses to the gearbox come from? They come from my power steering reservoir. My power steering reservoir is properly secured, filled to the proper level. Now, I can check it in a couple different ways. I can look at the little sight glass there, or I got a dipstick that I could pull. But quite frankly, looking through the sight glass and seeing that it's filled is good enough. All of my power steering lines are properly secured. None of them are leaking. Now I'm back to my gearbox. We talk about my pitman arm. My pitman arm comes off of my steering gearbox. My pitman arm is connected to my drag link. My drag link is that's this big guy right here, this big bar right here on thing. That's my drag link. My drag link is properly coupled or properly secured from my pitman arm and my knuckle. It is secured with castle nuts and cotter pins on both ends. We got to remember castle nuts and cotter pins. What do we got to remember?
Castle nuts.
See?
What's a castle nut?
Castle nut is a very specific type of nut, and you can kind of see it better on this one in the back. But if you look at it, it's got little notches cut out of it. It looks like the top of a castle turret. And those notches are there so the cotter pin can go through it from loosening it up. That's correct. It's a cotter pin. Does it say cotter pin? That's cotter. Okay, because that's what it is. So remember, you're making sure that the drag link is secured on both ends with castle nuts and cotter pins. Those are some of the key words that they're looking for.
What's the knuckle?
The knuckle is this guy back here. Now, the good news is you don't need to know that, because all they're asking for on the steering system is your gearbox, your shaft, your gearbox, your pitman arm, your drag link. They don't care that you know knuckle, but that's what the drag link connected to.
But you gotta know the cotter.
Yep, you got to know castle nuts and cotter. Castle nut and cotter. Yep. So you got castle nut and cotter pin on the front, and then another one here on the back. Hold your head in there, look at it closer.
Castle nut cotter pin.
Yep. All right. Now, in the real world, when we get back to this side, we're going to check the suspension, the brakes, the wheels, the tires. We're going to check it just like we did the other side. When it comes time for your test, this is an area you can make a shortcut. Once you get through your steering components, this is what I'm going to say to the examiner. You're going to say to the examiner as well. Now, I would check my suspension, my brakes, and my wheel and tire just like I did the other side. Would you like me to go over them again? And this is going to be where the examiner says, nope, you did a great job, let's move on. Or, yeah, would you do me a favor and go over them one more time? And that's code for you forgot something over there. So let's go over it one more time.
Do you get 2 sets of points for this side as well? Or it's all just...
As long as you demonstrate that you know what the components are once, yeah. Now, real world, is there anything wrong with going right through the whole system again with the examiner? No. But we're giving you an opportunity to say, hey, I know what this shit is because I just did it over there. Do you want to hear me again, or would you like me to move on? It's kind of what we're doing there. And most of the examiners will say, nope, you did it right on the other side, let's go move on.
But saying it that way, Jason, it gives you the opportunity, if you did miss something, that's your cue to run through it on this side and try to get your shortcoming took care of.
So
Okay.
you say it just like this. I'm going to check my suspension, my brakes, my wheel and tire, just like I did the other side. Would you like me to go over them again? Just like that. Okay? Once she says, no, you're great, let's move on. We're going to go ahead and close the hood. That finishes up under the hood. I'm going to go ahead and close the hood. We close the hood by closing the hood. Again, we don't want to let it flop down, so I'm just kind of holding it and guiding it down into place. Golden rule. Whenever you close the hood, latch the hood. It goes underneath there, flip it down, just like that. You want right? So you got to take those, flip that up, just tuck those underneath there, and then lock it down just like that. Pretty easy, right? So golden rule, whenever you close a hood, always latch a hood. Do not ever close the hood thinking, oh, I'm gonna latch those later, because what you'll do is you'll forget to latch your hood and you'll take off, and the first time you hit your brakes real good, the hood will come flying open. And you'll be in the middle of the road, hood flying open,
Right.
being all embarrassed. All right, so I've closed my hood. Now I'm gonna move around to the side of the butt. I'm gonna start right here. I've already done My front, I've done under my hood with the side of my bus, and I'm gonna start right here. Ready, set, go. From right here, I'm looking at a couple of things. I'm going basically the whole side of my bus, top down. I'm looking at my 3 clearance lights. I have 3 clearance lights. I have 2 amber and 1 red in the back. All of my clearance lights are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked or damaged. I'm gonna look at all of my windows. My windows are all intact. I don't see anything cracked or damaged. I see my emergency exit window. It is properly marked, and it has the reflective tape around it. I look down the side of my bus, and I have my reflective tape all along the side. It is properly adhered to the side of the bus. Nothing is worn, torn, or frayed. I have 2 amber turn signal lights on the side of the bus. Those are both properly mounted and secured, and the lenses are not cracked or damaged.
Do they also serve as hazards?
They do. They are your turn signal and 4-way indicators on the side of the bus. Working my way down, I talk about my 2 orange reflectors in the front, and I have a red reflector all the way in the back.
Can we say orange or we gotta say amber?
I'll let you say orange on these. If you say amber, that's fine. But if you want to say orange, you can. All the lights are amber. If you want to keep it simple and call these amber too, that's fine. So my amber reflectors and my red reflector are all properly adhered to the side of the bus.
So if we just keep everything amber as one word
Perfect.
to memorize,
Yep,
that way you don't get
absolutely.
confused.
Absolutely. I have my stoplight. This is going to illuminate outside the bus when my kids get on or off. This lens is clear in color, and it's properly mounted and secured. So now I've done basically the
Service, that's a service light, Jason?
You can call it a service light.
Okay. Yeah.
We actually have never been able to come up with a real live term for that light. It's not in any book known to man.
Right on.
It's bothering me.
Vigo called it the loading motion light.
Service light. Clear installer, properly mounted, secured, not cracked or leaking is a freaking million techniques.
So we didn't talk about it in class yet, but PMS, CDL, ABC, and WTF gets you through 97.5% of your pre-trip. PMS, properly mounted and secured. CDL, not cracked, damaged, or loose. ABC is pretty much our tires, abrasions, bulges, cuts. And WTF is what the fuck.
Yeah.
Worn, torn, or frayed, exactly. So those 4 acronyms get you through almost all of your pre-trip inspection. Now what we want to try not to do is say PMS and CDL 412 times, because it's just going to drive your examiner crazy. Use them in the proper place. If I'm looking at this, am I worried about this being worn, torn, or frayed?
No.
No. Am I worried?
leaking?
Yeah, it's not leaking, it's not cracked, damaged, or loose.
No leaking.
It is also properly mounted and secured. But if I'm going to say properly mounted and secured, I'm not going to say cracked, damaged, or loose. I'm just going to say it's properly mounted and secured and not cracked or damaged. Because I've already assumed that if it's properly mounted and secured, it's not loose. Makes sense? Right. So use those acronyms appropriately. Once I've done the exterior, then we start here at the door. My service door opens and closes freely. It is secured to all the hinges. The weather strips are all in place. The glass is all intact. None of it is cracked or damaged. That's my service door. Now I'm going to do bits and pieces as we go back. I'm going to talk about my def. My def tank, my service door opens and closes freely. My def tank is properly secured to the frame. The cap is on and tight. I do not see any signs of leakage. The door closes and secures. Now this is the fun part. Who's ready to get dirty with me?
We gotta go under the bus.
We're going under the bus, girl. Let's do this before it rains. Come on. There There's room to sit under here. All right, so after we get done with our DEF tank, I want you to remember DEF, D-E-F, because DEF is going to be the moniker that reminds you what your very next steps are. D, drive shaft. Checking my drive shaft. I want to make sure my drive shaft from front to back is properly mounted and secured. It is not damaged or bent. All of my U-joints are properly coupled and greased. I have what I call safety hangers. These little safety hangers are in place to make sure that if the U-joints or the drive shaft fails, it only drops as far as these safety hangers. And it does not have any debris wrapped around it, like we didn't pick up a shopping bag or something that got wrapped around it, or a rope or a strap or something. That's my D, drive shaft. E, exhaust. I'm gonna check my exhaust. This is my exhaust pipe. From front all the way to back, my exhaust pipe is properly mounted and secured. I don't see any cracks. I don't see any soot, which would indicate a leak. No signs of soot all along my exhaust pipe, which would indicate a leak. Now F. F is frame. I have 2 frame rails on each side. They are both straight, they are not bent, they are not cracked or damaged. There are no illegal holes or illegal welds. My cross members, and there are a couple of cross members, you don't need to tell them how many, you just need to point at the cross members. Here's one right here. Cross members are all secure.
Is that the flat part right here?
Yes, not this guy, but this guy up here.
Oh, okay.
And you can see there's one back there, you can kind of see a little bit better.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay, but that's what I'm mentioning on my frame. Not bent or damaged, no cracks, no illegal welds, no illegal holes. And it's properly attached and properly secured with all my cross members. There's my drive shaft, my exhaust, and my frame. So when you get done outside with your DEF tank, remember DEF, and you get a lot of bonus points by crawling under here just like this and actually pointing out and touching this stuff. The examiner's going to eat that up. We do have one examiner that will actually, if you get lazy and don't want to crawl under here, she'll be like, oh, you need to get up under there and show me all that stuff. Right. Okay. Once you're under here, I like to go right to the rear axle, rear suspension, rear brakes, which we can do by turning around. I know where Chris is at. He's going to point out all these fun things. Actually, you know what I'm going to do?
I can also move if that's easier.
I'm going to go on the other side because then I can point stuff out just as well. You guys stay over there and I'll point stuff out. So, we're talking about our rear suspension. Rear suspension components we need to know. We have our control arm mount. That's this big guy right here bolted to the frame. It's attached to our control arm. What does that control arm look like? Looks a lot like the leaf spring in the front, didn't it? It is not a leaf spring, it is a control arm. My control arm is mounted to my control arm mount, and it goes all the way back to where my airbag is at. You can kind of see the airbag. It's a big bag of rubber, about that big around, about that tall. We'll be able to see it easier once we poke our head back out of the bus. But that's what we're talking about. Control arm mount, control arm, airbag. Airbag is properly mounted to the top and the bottom. My control arm is mounted to my axle with my 2 U-bolts and the 4 nuts underneath. And my shock absorber, which is back here, again, a long skinny tube behind the axle. Shock absorber is mounted properly top and bottom. No signs of leaking.
Can you point out that shock arm again?
Yeah,
This right here.
I can't reach it, but it is all the way in the back. Remind me next time we come out here to bring my little pointer stick or my laser pointer. But the shock absorber about yay big around. You might be able to see this side a little easier, Jay.
Good.
All right, that's your suspension components. Now we talk about our brake components. Components are almost identical to the ones in front with a little bit of difference, but we're gonna name them the same way. We have our air lines. Our air lines, now we notice in the back we have 2 sets of lines. Our air lines are properly coupled, not worn, no signs of leakage. They're coupled to my brake chamber. My brake chamber is this big guy right here. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured. I also want to note that the ring clamp around my brake chamber is properly secured. This is a little clamp that goes all the way around the brake chamber to hold it together. My ring clamp is properly secured. Coming out of the back of my brake chamber is another push rod. The push rod is not bent or damaged, and it is properly secured to my slack adjuster. My slack adjuster would not have more than 1 inch of play with the brakes released. And then inside the drum, or inside the wheel, I have my shoes and my drum again. Shoes not cracked, damaged, worn dangerously thin. My drum is not cracked or damaged, and there is no oil or grease contaminating those. Make sense so far? Now, usually the last thing I start talking about while I'm underneath here is my tires, because if I'm sitting right where Chris is at, I'm looking right at rear tires. My tires, I have dual rear tires. We're going to remember dual rear tires. Tread is worn evenly across both sets of tires. I have proper spacing between the 2 tires. There's no debris, nothing caught in between the tires, which could cause a tire fire. I have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts on any of my inner or outer sidewalls. And then usually I duck back out from under the bus and start talking about air pressure once we're out by the wheel. So everybody duck out. Let me out from underneath this beast. Our minimum tread is 2 30-seconds in the rear. Proper spacing, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And then we talk about proper inflation. I would check with a tire pressure gauge. Both of my tires should be inflated to 80 psi in the back. I go talk about my rims, just like I did in the back. My rims, not cracked or damaged, no illegal welds. My lug nuts are all properly secured. No signs of any rust trails, which would indicate a loose lug nut, or any shiny threads, which would indicate a cross-threaded lug nut. My axle is properly secured. All these nuts are properly secured, and my axle seal is secured and not leaking. My rear mud flap properly secured to my bus. That pretty much gets my rear axle parts. Then I talk about my diesel tank. My filler door opens freely. My cap is on and tight. My filler door closes and secures freely.
The back tires, do you say
2 30 seconds. Yep. 2 30 seconds is my minimum tread. And I would check that with the tread depth gauge. Tire pressure is 80. I would check that with the tire pressure. All right.
You tell them that?
Yep. Underneath my filler tank or my filler door, I actually want to look underneath there and see my fuel tank is properly mounted inside its cage. It's got a big steel cage. The tank is inside that. It's properly secured and doesn't show any signs of leaking. And that pretty much gets me along this whole side of the bus. Now, before I do the rear of the bus, we're going to take a 2-minute break. I have what I call safety hangers. These little safety hangers are in place to make sure that if the U-joints or the drive shaft fails, it only drops as far as these safety hangers. And it does not have any debris wrapped around it. Like we didn't pick up a shopping bag or something that got wrapped around it, or a rope or a strap or something. That's my D, drive shaft. E, exhaust. I'm gonna check my exhaust. This is my exhaust pipe. From front all the way to back, my exhaust pipe is properly mounted and secured. I don't see any cracks. I don't see any soot, which would indicate a leak. No signs of soot all along my exhaust pipe, which would indicate a leak. Now F. F is frame. I have 2 frame rails on each side. They are both straight, they are not bent, they are not cracked or damaged. There are no illegal holes or illegal welds. My cross members, and there are a couple of cross members, you don't need to tell them how many, you just need to point at the cross members. Here's one right here. Cross members are all secure.
Is that the flat part right here?
Yes, not this guy, but this guy up here.
Oh, okay.
You can see there's one back there. You can kind of see a little bit better.
Oh, okay.
Right, but that's what I'm mentioning on my frame. Not bent or damaged, no cracks, no illegal welds, no illegal holes. And it's properly attached and properly secured with all my cross members. There's my drive shaft, my exhaust, and my frame. So when you get done outside with your DEF tank, remember DEF, and you get a lot of bonus points by crawling under here just like this and actually pointing out and touching this stuff. The examiner's going to eat that up. We do have one examiner that will actually, if you get lazy and don't want to crawl under here, she'll be like, oh, you need to get up under there and show me all that stuff. Right. Okay. Once you're under here, I like to go right to the rear axle, rear suspension, rear brakes, which we can do by turning around. Woo-hoo-hoo. And where Chris is at, he's going to point out all these fun things.
Badass.
Actually, you know what I'm going to do?
I can also move if that's easier.
I'm going to go on the other side because then I can point stuff out just as well. You guys stay over there and I'll point stuff out. So, we're talking about our rear suspension. Rear suspension components we need to know. We have our control arm mount. That's this big guy right here bolted to the frame. It's attached to our control arm. What does that control arm look like? Looks a lot like the leaf spring in the front, didn't it? It is not a leaf spring, it is a control arm. My control arm is mounted to my control arm mount, and it goes all the way back to where my airbag is at. You can kind of see the airbag. It's a big bag of rubber, about that big around, about that tall. We'll be able to see it easier once we poke our head back out of the bus. But that's what we're talking about. Control arm mount, control arm, airbag. Airbag is properly mounted to the top and the bottom. My control arm is mounted to my axle with my 2 U-bolts and the 4 nuts underneath. And my shock absorber, which is back here, again, long skinny tube behind the axle. Shock absorber is mounted properly top and bottom. No signs of leaking.
Can you point out that shock arm?
Yeah,
This right here.
I can't reach it, but it is all the way in the back. Remind me next time we come out here to bring my little pointer stick or my laser pointer. But the shock absorber, about yay big around. You might be able to see this side a little easier, Jason.
Good.
All right, that's your suspension components. Now we talk about our brake components. Components are almost identical to the ones in front with a little bit of difference, but we're going to name them the same way. We have our air lines. Our air lines, now we notice in the back we have 2 sets of lines. Our air lines are properly coupled, not worn, no signs of leakage. They are coupled to my brake chamber. My brake chamber is this big guy right here. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured. I also want to note that the ring clamp around my brake chamber is properly secured. This is a little clamp that goes all the way around the brake chamber to hold it together. My ring clamp is properly secured. Coming out of the back of my brake chamber is another push rod. The push rod is not bent or damaged, and it is properly secured to my slack adjuster. My slack adjuster would not have more than 1 inch of play with the brakes released. And then inside the drum, or inside the wheel, I have my shoes and my drum again. Shoes not cracked, damaged, worn dangerously thin. My drum is not cracked or damaged, and there is no oil or grease contaminating those. Make sense so far? Now, usually the last thing I start talking about while I'm underneath here is my tires, because if I'm sitting right where Chris is at, I'm looking right at rear tires. My tires, I have dual rear tires. We're going to remember dual rear tires. Tread is worn evenly across both sets of tires. I have proper spacing between the 2 tires. There's no debris, nothing caught in between the tires, which could cause a tire fire. I have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts on any of my inner or outer sidewalls. And then usually I duck back out from under the bus and start talking about air pressure once we're out by the wheel. So everybody duck out, let me out from underneath this beast. I go talk about my rims, just like I did in the back. My rims, not cracked or damaged, no illegal welds. My lug nuts are all properly secured. No signs of any rust trails, which would indicate a loose lug nut, or any shiny threads, which would indicate a cross-threaded lug nut. My axle is properly secured. All these nuts are properly secured, and my axle seal is secured and not leaking. My rear mud flap, properly secured to my bus. That pretty much gets my rear axle parts. Then I talk about my diesel tank. My filler door opens freely. My cap is on and tight. My filler door closes and secures freely.
The back tires do say
230 seconds. Yep. 230 seconds is my minimum tread. 3 red clearance lights are properly mounted and secured to the bus. They are not cracked or damaged. Coming just below that, I've got my pretty school bus sign. It is clear, it is legible, it is properly adhered to the back of my bus. Working my way out, I've got the rest of my 8-way clearance lights. I've got 2 amber and 2 red clearance lights, or student stop lights. They are both properly mounted and secured, or they're all properly mounted and secured. They are not cracked or damaged. Working my way down, my emergency door is properly labeled. Looking at my windows, all of my window glass is intact. It's properly secured. It is not cracked or damaged. My clear backup lights, my red run and brake lights, and my amber turn signal lights, all properly mounted and secured. None of them are cracked or damaged. I also have 2 red tail lights. Those are properly mounted and not cracked or damaged. I also have all of my reflective tape all the way around my rear end. All properly adhered to the bus. None of it is frayed. None of it is worn off. My license plate is properly installed and is current. And my pretty red reflective circles are properly adhered to my bus. My bumper properly mounted and secured to the back of my bus. And my tailpipe. I talk about my tailpipe is protruding at least 1 inch from my rear bumper. The last thing I'm going to do is check my service door or my emergency door. I want to make sure my emergency door opens freely, latch is in place. All of my weather stripping around my door is intact. It is not cracked, it is not worn or frayed. And then I also like to look at my strip right here. Does not have anything protruding from it that would injure a kid as they slid off the back of the bus. If I need to evacuate the bus, the kids are going to sit down and slide off the back here. I want to make sure there's nothing sharp sticking up here. Okay? I also want to make sure my bus releases, or my door releases, closes, and latches securely. That's the back of my bus, y'all. Pretty easy peasy, right? Top down, hit it all. I stop at the top of the stairs, do my emergency equipment. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my key and I'm going to insert it. And I'm just going to turn the bus into the on position. Once I turn my bus into the on position, I'm going to reach over here and there's a switch for my dome lights. I'm going to turn my dome lights on. Key on, dome lights on. Now I'm going to start the passenger compartment from here. From standing right here, I'm looking at the back of my bus. First thing I'm going to talk about are the dome lights that I just turned on. I've got 6 dome lights. All the lenses are properly mounted and secured. They're all clear in color, and they are all functioning. You know how I know that? Because I just turned them on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look all the way up and down the aisleway here. I'm checking my aisleway to make sure that my tread is properly secured. There is nothing sticking up that would cause a trip hazard. Remember the phrase trip hazards. We want to make sure that our little kids don't trip up and down the aisleway. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check all my seats. I'm checking all my seats as I work my way back to make sure that all of my seats are properly secured to the floor. And to do that, really, I'm just going to grab the seat backs, give them a good wiggle, and I'm going to check every seat as I'm working my way back. And I'm also checking my floor, checking my seats, making sure they're all properly mounted and secured. And my floor is free of any trip hazards. Once I'm to the back of the bus, I shift gears and I start thinking about my emergency exits. My emergency exit door, properly labeled. I'm going to make sure that my latch opens freely. And I'm listening to make sure that that alarm goes off when I open my door. My rear door opens and closes freely and latches. Yes, I checked my back door from the outside. Yes, I'm checking it again from the inside. Making sure that it opens and closes freely and making sure that I hear that alarm. Make sense? Now as I'm working my way back, I'm going to talk about my other emergency exits. On this bus, I have 2 roof hatches. My emergency roof hatches, in order to test them, I'm going to take this red handle, I'm going to open it, make sure I hear that alarm. I'm going to push it. I don't have to open it all the way. I just have to make sure that it releases. And then I'm going to latch it back so that I don't have to hear that squealing in my ear. This particular bus only has 2 window exits. Some of them have 4. Really just depends on which bus we're using. But you're going to check any of your window exits. In this particular case, I'm going to check this one, make sure that my emergency exit window opens and closes.
And the alarm goes off.
And the alarm goes off. Properly labeled. Would you like me to demonstrate this one as well? No, you did fine. Would you like me to demonstrate the other roof hatch? No, you're fine. Just so you guys get a better look at how this operates, this red handle where it says turn then push. Hey, we turn, we push. What happened?
No alarm. Why?
Good catch.
Not working.
It's not working. So what would I do in that particular case?
Get the shop.
I would
notate it on your DVR.
I would note it on my DVIR, exactly.
Unsafe.
Now, real world, am I going to not take the bus because of that? No, but I'm certainly going to put it in my DVIR.
Okay.
And I'm going to let them fix it when they get back.
So you would still go out on the route,
Yeah,
Jason?
I would.
Because it's still open still.
Yep.
It still opens.
Yep.
Now, if it didn't open, different story, right?
Yep.
Okay. Makes sense.
Fun fact, while we're driving these buses, these also function as vents. You can open them up both front and back. Or what most people do is they open the front one
Let it come in.
like an air scoop and then open the back one like an exhaust.
Right.
So on those hot days when it's 400 degrees in here,
Woo!
we come in, we open windows, we open roof hatches, and we go about our day. So we've demonstrated all of our emergency exits. We've already checked our seats. We've checked our floor. We've checked our dome lights. Now we work our way back up to the, oops, sorry, Steve. We come back up here, and the last thing we check before we sit down is the seat that we sit in it. We make sure our seat is properly secured to the floor, and we check our seat belt. We make sure our seat belt extends and retracts freely. My seat belt is not worn, torn, or frayed. Misha's seat belt's all messed up, so we're gonna fix that for her. Because my OCD will flare up and nobody wants that. So not worn, torn, or frayed, and my buckle latches and releases freely. Now, get in the habit. Anytime you sit in the seat, put your seat belt on. So I sit in my seat. First thing I do is reach over. I put my seat belt on. And I am now behind the wheel. Once I'm behind the wheel, I can do a couple of things. I can shut my dome lights off, and then I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. Make sense? So the first thing they're going to want you to say is, my student mirror is properly secured and properly adjusted. I can see all the way to the back of the bus. Worked my way down. My fans are both properly mounted. They both work. My visor properly mounted and secured. My windshield, I'm checking my windshield again from the inside. Properly mounted and secured. No cracks, no damage, no illegal stickers, no obstruction to my view. Working my way down, I got windshield wipers. I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna make sure my windshield wipers go, and I'm gonna push in, and I'm gonna make sure my washers wash. My windshield wipers and washers both work. Now, while I've got my hand on my turn signal, because I just got done manually operating my wipers, the next thing I'm going to go through is my lighting indicators. All of my lighting indicators, not necessarily my lights, but my indicators on the dash, I want to make sure they work. So I'm going to turn my left turn signal on, make sure that indicator works. Turn my right turn signal on, make sure that indicator works. I'm going to turn my four ways on, make sure those indicators work. I'm going to turn my headlights on, which is a switch down here by my left knee. And I'm going to turn my high beams on and make sure that indicator works and goes back off. Now I'm going to run through my switch panels. On the left, you've got this big panel of switches. The cool thing is they all say what they do. My fans, we've already checked them. I have my stepwell heater. Make sure my stepwell heater works. Make sure my driver's heater and defrost works. And I'm going to actually make a motion to make sure I feel air blowing up here. Now I'm going to check my rear heater. I can hear my rear heater coming on. My boost pump, which is my next switch, I turn that on, I hear my boost pump going.
What does that do, Jason? Yeah.
Very good question. You will not ever use that while you're here in training because it's hot as balls out. Your rear heater is nothing more than an extra heater core in the back of the bus. And the boost pump is a small electric pump here in the front that helps boost or push hot coolant to that rear heater core. So the two work in conjunction. During the wintertime when it's cold and you need heat, anytime you need that rear heater, you want to use that boost pump because it helps get coolant all the way to the back. My heated mirror switch, obviously I'm not going to touch my mirrors, but I'm going to look at it and there's a small little indicator light that comes on. I make sure that comes on. My next switch is my air horn. I'm going to test my air horn. While I'm testing my air horn, I might as well test my city horn. Now I go back down to my next row, my strobe light. Again, I can't see it. There's a strobe light on the back of the body, like kind of behind where that rear exit hatch is. But I turn it on, I look for my little indicator to come on. My dome lights, we've already checked. Now I'm gonna go through, excuse me, we're gonna close our door before we start our flashing lights. Now, down on this bottom row, we have first three switches. One says master flasher. All that does is we turn that on and it powers up my student light system, my 8-way student lights. It powers those up. It doesn't turn them on yet, but it puts power to them. The next one says flasher light. That is the switch we use to start our amber lights. We hit that start button, and I'm looking for my amber flasher indicator on my dash. And I can also look in my crossover mirrors and see that they're flashing, but we're less worried about exterior lights right now. There's going to be a time to do exterior lights in a minute. Now, to switch from my ambers to my reds, you can operate your door switch, which is a little toggle switch down here on this panel, and it's a 3-position switch. Door closed, middle position turns on our warning lights, which switches to reds, deploys our stop signs. It also deploys our front crossover arm. And then I look for my red flasher indicator on my dash. Then I can go ahead and close the door, which turns all of my lights off. Once I'm done with that, I reach back over and I turn off my master flasher. Sounds complicated. It sounds like a pain in the ass, because it is, but you'll get used to it. There's a reason why we want to turn that off in between things. And the reason is, if I leave that master flasher switch on and I open the door to let the examiner out, now all of a sudden, as soon as I've opened that door, all my red lights are going. We don't want to do that yet.
Also, if you stop on railroad tracks, you're
Yes, if you stop at a railroad tracks with your master flasher switch on, when you open that door, all the red lights and stop signs come out, and we cannot do that. We only use our 4-ways at railroad tracks. Make sense? We'll practice that plenty. So I kill my master flasher light. All right, I've done all my switches. I've done all my indicators. The next thing I'm going to do is say, Mr. Examiner, would you be so kind as to step out and check all my exterior lights for me? Mr. Examiner is going to say, absolutely. So I'm going to open the door and I'm going to kick old boy out.
so you don't have to walk backwards on these. You hold the 3-point switch and go down.
No.
We did it backwards, and he's like, "What are you doing?" That's for tractor and trailers. But it makes more sense doing it like we've been doing it.
Yeah, just walk on and off the bus. All right, so the examiner gets out, we close the door behind them, and they're gonna go stand out in front. And now what you're gonna do is turn your lights on. All right, lights are on. My high beams, my low beams, my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my 4 ways. Now I'm gonna do my student lights, my ambers, my reds. Would you like to go to the rear? Now you're doing it just like that. You're yelling your ass out the window because they want to hear what you're turning on so they know what to check. All right, left turn signal, right turn signal, 4 ways, brake lights, amber lights, red lights, all done. After I shut all the lights off, I kill that master flasher switch again, and then I open the door so that the examiner can get back on the bus. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Before I continue, I need to reset my student button. And we're going to talk about why and how, but I'm just going to demonstrate for now. In order to reset my student button, I'll turn my lights off. I'm going to turn my key off and then back to the 11 o'clock or accessory position. And I'm going to get out and I'm going to hike my ass all the way to the back of the bus. And there is a reset button right here. And I'm going to push that and you hear it stop beeping, right? The reason you have to come back and reset that button before you go any farther is because you could be in the middle of your air brake test and have the student alarm going off, and that's distracting to say the least.
If that happens, start over.
Yep. We'll talk more about how that works and why we have to do that. But understand, as soon as the examiner gets back in from the light test, that's the next thing you want to do is make sure you go reset that student button. All right, now I'm safely secured back in my seat. The next thing I want to do is a safe start. What is a safe start? You're going to hear us use that term quite a bit. Safe start is ensuring your transmission is in neutral, your parking brake is engaged, and I'm going to cover my foot over the brake. I'm not really going to apply it, but I'm just going to cover it. I'm going to turn my key on. And when I turn the key on, I'm going to watch my instrument panel, and I'm looking for a couple things. I'm looking for my ABS light to come on and go off, and I'm watching for my check engine light to go off. It has gone off. Now I'm going to start the bus. Bus is started. First thing I'm going to do is double check my oil pressure gauge. Make sure my oil pressure comes up and the little red light goes off. The next thing I'm going to do, and you guys are going to get in this habit, anytime we're sitting and idling, you're going to use your high idle. High idle is applied by, there's two buttons on your steering wheel. One says cruise and throttle, one says resume or accelerate, basically your cruise control switches. We're going to turn on and we're going to turn up. Hear the idle kick up. Anytime we're sitting and idling for more than a minute, we're going to turn the high idle up, which is better for the bus. Did you hear that? That is the governor cutout. That's something that becomes very important a little bit later. But for now, we've started the bus. We're going to run through all of our gauges, left to right. My def level, my trans temperature gauge are all reading accurately. My water temperature is reading, and it will come up to normal operating temperature. My oil pressure is at its normal range for idle. My RPM gauge is indicating proper RPMs. My miles per hour indicates that we're not going anywhere. My volt gauge is reading proper voltage above 14 volts. Fuel gauge is reading accurately. And in my two air tanks, I have a primary and secondary air tank. They are both reading accurately. Now I'm ready to get into my pre-trip air brake test. This is the part that hoses up more people than anything. But you're going to do it in this order. I am now ready to start my air brake pre-trip test. In order to start my air brake pre-trip test, I need to make sure that my air tanks are filled all the way to governor cutout. Yes, we just heard governor cutout, but we can't rely on that. We got to start from scratch. So what I'm going to do right now is, because my air tanks are both full, I'm going to fan down my air pressure a little bit by applying the brakes to the point where my governor cuts in or kicks in. I'm going to hit my high idle again, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait for pressure to build to governor cut off.
So every time you hit your brake, your fast idle goes off. So when you stop again, you have to reset it. Anytime you hit the brake, it goes out.
Kind of go through this full speed, and then we'll parse it all out. But I'm going to have you see it full speed once. All right, my governor has cut off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my bus off, turn the key back to the on position so I have power to my gauges. I'm going to fully apply my brake and release my parking brake. First thing I'm going to do is let my gauges stabilize. Once they have stabilized, I'm going to ask you to start a timer for me for 1 minute, and I'm going to make sure I do not lose more than 3 psi in that minute. My tanks have stabilized. Mr. Examiner, would you please start a timer for me?
Okay.
Okay. I'm watching my gauges. I'm ensuring that they are not losing any pressure.
Okay.
It's been a minute?
In a minute.
Outstanding. I have not lost more than 3 pounds in that minute. The second test that I'm going to do is my low air pressure warning test. I want to make sure that my low air pressure warning comes on before my gauges reach 55 psi. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fan my brakes down to reduce my air pressure and watch for my warnings to come on above 55 psi. Okay, my alarm came on above 55 psi. Third thing I'm going to check is my emergency brake pop-out test. I'm going to continue to fan my pressure down, and I'm going to watch for my my emergency brake to pop out between 20 and 45 psi. And my emergency brake has popped out between 20 and 45 psi. Now I can release my foot off the brake. The next thing I'm going to do is start my bus back up. I'm going to activate my high idle again, and I'm going to go ahead and build my air pressure back up to governor cutoff.
So when you're doing that brake test, you got your foot on that brake, do not let off that brake. If you ever hear, you got to start over. You lost the true reading of your brake system. So keep your foot on there until you start fanning, hold it. Don't let off in between each test. That will fail you. So once you put your foot on your brake, you release your emergency brake, do not let off that pedal.
Oh yes, you got control of this.
Right. Because if you ever hear it hiss, governor cut out, you will not get a true reading, and that will fail you. So keep your foot. I know it's going to, when they time you 1 minute, they will time you for 1 minute. It's a long time. But do not let your foot rest. I mean, if you hear it hiss, air leak, you got to start over. Just keep it on there. Once you start doing your fanning, the warning light comes on, hold it. Do not let off of it until you start your next fanning down to 20 to 25 psi. You will hear it hiss. Just a little bit will get you. I think we've had maybe 2 fail for that.
Even a little bit.
A little bit. No, because now you don't have a true reading because you let off, you got back on it, you lost some more air. So it's not going to be a true air brake test.
My governor is cut off. The next test I'm going to perform is my parking brake hold test. I want to make sure that my parking brake holds the bus. In order to do that, I'm going to leave the parking brake engaged. I'm going to apply my brake, shift into drive, and I'm going to give it a little bit of acceleration. And it doesn't need to be much, it's just that little bit. Make sure my parking brake holds. The last test I'm going to perform is my service brake test. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to fully demonstrate it with this trailer in the way, but I'm going to talk you through it. What we normally do is with the transmission and drive, we release the parking brake. We hover our hands over the steering wheel. I'm not touching it, I'm hovering my hands. I proceed forward, give it a little bit of gas. I build up a speed no more than 5 miles an hour. So I pull forward, I hit the brakes, and what I'm watching for is to make sure that my steering wheel did not turn one way or the other, or the front of my bus did not turn one way or the other. Once I come to a stop, I secure the bus, neutral, parking brake, take my foot off the brake, and I turn my head and I say, Mr. Examiner, that concludes my air brake test, which concludes my pre-trip inspection. And Mr. Examiner says, great, let's go drive through some codes. ready to go inside the bus? Here we go. Service door, properly mounted and secured. Opens and closes freely. Weather strips are all in place. They're not worn, torn, or frayed. All of my glass is intact, not cracked or damaged. I open the door and I'm looking at my step well. I need to make sure that all my steps are solid. My tread is properly secured. There is nothing sticking up to cause a trip hazard. My step well light, clear in colors, properly mounted and secured. That lens is not cracked or damaged. My handrails, both sides properly secured, not loose. Now I work my way up into the bus. Now as I work my way up into the bus, I usually stop right here just like this at the top stair. Then I'm going to talk about my emergency equipment. My emergency equipment is going to consist of my fire extinguisher. My fire extinguisher is present. It is properly mounted and secured. It is properly rated, dated, and charged. Remember, rated, dated, and charged. It's properly rated for the bus. It's got a current date tag, and it is fully charged. Rated, dated, and charged. Now I work my way up to my body fluid kit and my first aid kit, both properly mounted and secured and both fully stocked. Fully stocked. Other emergency equipment I talk about. My red triangle box. I've got 3 reflective triangles in this box. That box is properly mounted and secured. Other emergency equipment I have inside my glove box. I have a seat belt cutter and my spare fuses. Why don't you guys all come in and have a seat in the front 2 rows? That's pretty fucked up. We both did that. All right.
Y'all been working together too long.
Start at the top of the bus. I got 3 red clearance lights. Those 3 red clearance lights are properly mounted and secured to the bus. They are not cracked or damaged. Coming just below that, I've got my pretty school bus sign. It is clear, it is legible, it is properly adhered to the back of my bus. Working my way out, I've got the rest of my 8-way clearance lights. I've got 2 amber and 2 red clearance lights, or student stop lights. They are both properly mounted and secured, or they're all properly mounted and secured. They are not cracked or damaged. Working my way down, my emergency door is properly labeled. Looking at my windows, all of my window glass is intact. It's properly secured. It is not cracked or damaged. My clear backup lights, my red run and brake lights, and my amber turn signal lights, all properly mounted and secured. None of them are cracked or damaged. I also have 2 red tail lights. Those are properly mounted and not cracked or damaged. I also have all of my reflective tape all the way around my rear end. All properly adhered to the bus. None of it is frayed. None of it is worn off. My license plate is properly installed and is current. And my pretty red reflective circles are properly adhered to my bus. My bumper properly mounted and secured to the back of my bus. And my tailpipe, I talk about my tailpipe, is protruding at least 1 inch from my rear bumper. The last thing I'm going to do is check my service door or my emergency door. I want to make sure my emergency door opens freely, latches in place. All of my weather stripping around my door is intact. It is not cracked, it is not worn or frayed. And then I also like to look at my strip right here. Does not have anything protruding from it that would injure a kid as they slid off the back of the bus. If I need to evacuate the bus, kids are going to sit down and slide off the back here. I want to make sure there's nothing sharp sticking up here. Okay? I also want to make sure my bus releases, or my door releases, closes, and latches securely. That's the back of my bus, y'all. Pretty easy peasy, right? Top down, Hit it all. Now I come over here to the other side of the bus. This is going to be your second shortcut. When you get to the second side of your bus, you're going to say to the examiner, now when I get to this side of the bus, I'm going to check it much like I did the other side with a couple of exceptions. Would you like me to go over it all again, or would you like me to talk about the exceptions?
I don't know what this is.
And the examiner's going to say, no, just talk about the exceptions. Again, if they say go over the whole thing again, they know.
And let you know you missed something.
Yep. And if you did, you would go through the whole thing. Top down, lights, windows, reflective tape, turn signals, rear axle, suspension, brakes, wheels and tires. But if she says, no, just show me the exceptions. Here's what's different on this side of the bus that we didn't check on the other side. We're going to start right here with my student stop arm. My student stop arm is properly secured. It opens freely, properly legible. My red stoplight lenses are all properly secured. They're not cracked or damaged. I work my way up to the front. I check my other student stop arm. Student stop arm properly secured. Opens, closes freely. All of my red lenses are intact. They're not cracked or damaged. Working my way forward, I've got two compartments we're going to talk about. This compartment is my fuse box. My fuse box door opens and closes properly. All my fuses are in place. And I usually mention that I have spare fuses in my glove box. None of my wires are worn, torn, or frayed. Nothing is loose. Everything is properly secured where it should be. Door closes and latches properly. Working my way down to my battery compartment. My battery compartment opens freely. My batteries, I've got 3 batteries. They are properly secured. All of my cables are properly secured to my battery. None of my cables are worn, torn, or frayed. All of my connections are tight. And none of my batteries are swollen. My battery tray is firmly attached and secured to my bus. My battery door closes, latches securely. My driver's window, not cracked or damaged, operates smoothly. My antenna is properly secured. My air horn is properly secured.
You good? Okay, thank you.
That concludes the outside of the bus. Everybody an expert now?
Not yet.
Excellent.
Not yet.
All right.
We're getting there.
Okie dokie, Smokey.
We're good? Okay,
Good.
I did not lose more than 3 psi in 1 minute. My next test will be my warning light and buzzer. At that time, I cannot go below 55 psi. Okay, my light and buzzer come on before I hit 55 psi. Did not go below 55 psi. My next test will be my emergency pop out. I will fan my pedal down. In between 20 and 45 psi, my emergency brake should apply. Okay. My emergency brake popped out in between 20 and 45 psi. That is a good test. So now I'm going to do a safe start. At this time, I'm going to build my pressure back up to 120, 140. This is for my purge valve. My purge valve will let me know my tanks are truly full of 120, 140. Flip it outside. You can talk to the kids.
Yeah, but that's fun.
We had somebody had it on the exterior. See, so, hey, wouldn't y'all kids go back here and hit that button on the wall back there? Y'all hear me? I don't care who does it. I want you to do it. They're in front of a school with the outside speaker. She's saying that. She thinks she's in the inside.
Dumbass.
Go happy to her.
Promoted to customer.
She got fired.
Yeah.
My air tanks are 120, 140. Purge valve popped. The next test will be my emergency brake test, otherwise tug test. I'll put it in drive. Give it a little throttle. That was a good test. My next one will be my service brake test to make sure my bus does not pull to the left or the right, which will indicate when my brakes are sticking. My bus did not pull to the left or the right. Good test. My mind was going through everything. Did I forget anything? Did I forget anything? Done everything?
Secure the bus.
And that. So at this time, I have completed my pre-trip and my air brake test. So,
I think I'm the only one with a bad
so now we're going to do a safe start. I'm going to build my pressure up to 120, 140 and listen for the purge valve to pop. My ABS light came on, went off.
Get the picture of the engine light too. No.
That's for us. Time we're going to build our air pressure up to 120, 140. We're going to listen for our purge valve to pop. Once the purge valve pops, we know we have 120, 140 full air tank.
send it with Mr. Josh. Mr. Josh, hold tight. Stop at the top if you don't mind, please.
Okay, my purge valve popped. My tanks are between 120 and 140. I know I got a true reading on my air tanks. At this time, I will turn my bus off.
Mr. Josh, I need you to hold tight. Hold tight, hold tight. Mr. Josh, please stop. 521, please stop.
So my tanks are 120, 140. My purge valve popped. I know I got a true reading. At this time, I'm going to turn my bus off, turn it back
Mr. Josh,
on,
did you copy?
and release my emergency brake.
April, he kept going.
Got my foot on the brake, arm position, released my emergency brake. At this time, I am watching my gauges to my air tank to make sure they stabilize. My tanks are stabilized. The next test I will be doing is my 3 psi leakage test. In 1 minute, I should not lose more than 3 psi. Would you please start the timer?